Hi guys, here is our week 3 video for our Brightspace summer series. In this session, we're going to be going ahead and covering assignments, discussions, quizzes, and how to bring them into the content tool. So I'm going to go ahead and work in my upcoming fall course. A side note for you all is that there is a way to delete everything in your course. You can't do it accidentally, so don't worry about that. But if you wanted to play around in your fall course and try things out and you're like, all right, now I'm ready and I want to start from scratch and go ahead, there is a way to do that. So if you have a fall course and you're messing around, don't worry, you can wipe the slate clean when you're ready to truly begin building. All right, so first let's talk about, we're going to do our interactive items today: assignments, discussions, and quizzes. Now, first we're going to go from content. Now, for those of you who like to build your course linearly, so you're going to say, all right, I'm going to start with week 1, and I know exactly what I need to add in week 1, and I know exactly what I need to add in week 2, etc., etc. Adding from content might be a good way for you to go. This also gives you kind of streamlined options. So if you're a person that uses all of the details and nuanced settings and for your assignments or discussions or quizzes, you're going to want to actually go to the assignments page and work there, to the discussions page and work there, to the quizzes page and work there. But on this content page, it gives you a streamlined view. So if you're a basic user, this is a good way for you to work. So I'm going to start in week 1. We have the upload create button. Last week we talked about these other resources up here, but if we scroll down, you'll see we have new assignment, checklist, discussion, quiz, and survey. So the ones we're not discussing today are checklist and survey. I can show you a sample of a checklist. And if anyone has been in the Brightspace Basics for Instructors course, there is a checklist in there, so you can see one live and in action from the student perspective. And their survey tool works similarly to a quiz tool, except it has some built-in Likert scales and things that you can use to easily set up kind of like your own personal end of course or mid-course survey. It can be anonymous. So those we are not discussing today, but you can explore them in greater detail on your own. Or if you have questions, let me know. So I'm going to start out with new assignment. All right. And so from the new assignment page, we end up on the assignment creation. The assignment tool is actually one of the ones where you will have the most options, just as if you were on the assignment page. Now, everything over here in this bar on the right, you don't have to fill out. You do need kind of the basic items over here. So you can do your assignment name. You do have the option to have it graded or not. So it defaults to ungraded. You can choose if you want it to be out of a points value or not. You can remove it from the grades, so you can still score it, but it won't go into the grade book. Or you can add it to the grades, which we talk about more in week 4. So right now I'm just going to leave it as ungraded, so we don't have to worry about it. But here you'll see you also have the option to set a due date. And then down here is instructions. And you'll see a couple things. You still have all of the fancy buttons here. This one is our insert stuff button. It looks a little different, but you still have that insert stuff, quick link, photo buttons. And then there's more options here. So for anybody in science and math, there's equations and symbols here. If you wanted to work in a bigger screen, just so you're aware, if we haven't talked about it already, these little lines in the bottom corner always allow you to drag to make longer. And if you see this 4 arrows out, that's our full screen button. So if you wanted to type the instructions wider, you could. To return to the previous screen, you'll go ahead and click that button again, and it comes back down. So these are instructions. You'll also notice you have some link items here as well. So there's file upload. These are basically, this is your quick link button. So quick link is down here, and it's also up here. Insert stuff is up here. This is a web link, so if you just wanted to link to a web page. And then there's also a Google Drive option. So if you have files or additional items stored there, you can do them here. And once again, record audio and video are here. So if you wanted to give a video overview or an audio overview of the assignment, you can do that as well. Now, the additional items for the assignment, availability dates and conditions. Remember, you really shouldn't be using availability dates because that's what makes it visible. So if you put an end date, it'll make it hidden. If you put a start date, it won't be visible until those dates. So you'll want to consider those. Special access, that's where you're going to go for any of your students that need accommodations, or if you have a student with a situation that arises and you need to give them extra time, extended time, different things. That's what is here. Manage special access. So you'll see there's an option. You'll click add users to special access. It'll come up. You can give them a different due date. You can give them different availability. If you are using groups even, it will show up here eventually, and you can sort your users by groups. But you could pick a student and say, this student needs a different due date, and you could give them a different due date than you originally had. When you're done, you hit save and close, and be good to go. All right, down next up is submission and completion. So this one, there's an individual assignment. If you have groups in your course, it'll give you the option right here to change it to a group assignment. So, you know, you'll get one submission for the group and one grade for the group you can give. And then submission type. So how are they doing this assignment? So there's a couple different ways. So you have file where they upload a file to you. Text is where they type on the screen here. And then if you're teaching in person, you can still use Brightspace to kind of organize and share a timeline of your course, or to collect things, or to let students track their grades. But so you have on paper submission and observed in person. You can choose if you want unlimited file or one file for the upload. Typically, I've left mine at unlimited so far. For those of you who have heavy-duty courses or files, the file upload in Brightspace was already more than we were used to with Moodle, and Brightspace actually just doubled theirs, so it is now 2 gigabytes. You also have the option for submission. So you can say only one submission is allowed, so they only get one chance. All submissions are kept, means that the student can upload files. Like they can submit more than one time. So they may upload a file to you and then say, oh, I uploaded the wrong one. You don't have to do anything for them to be able to upload a new file, because they can just go ahead and upload that new file. And then there's the option, only the most recent submission is kept. So all submissions are kept, means you can see like they uploaded 1, 2, 3, 4 times along the way, however many, or you'll just see the one that they submitted lastly. Next up is evaluation and feedback, and we talk more about these next week. But here's where you would add a rubric. I always recommend leaving the annotation tool turned on. Makes it so you can like write on their submissions if they're uploading a file. You can also turn on anonymous marking. Once you save it, you won't be able to undo that. But if you wanted to have a more objective approach to grading papers or something, you can do that. Just remember to make sure your students don't put their names on their papers. But then also if you wanted to turn it in, that would be here as well. So those are all the options for an assignment. When you're done, also note that it defaults to being invisible. So when you're done, you can flip the switch and say, yes, it's ready, save and close. So make sure that. The nice thing on this page here is you can see activity details. So at this point, like if you made it and you decided, oh, this isn't required, you could change that. If you wanted to adjust any of these options quickly, you could click on it and say, I do want it to be one file, and I want to see everything that they did. Don't forget to click the blue update when you're done. You could change the date. So maybe I'll change my due date to the 20th. All right, all of those items are there. You'll also see we left it as ungraded. If I changed my mind and wanted to make it graded, I could do that here. Things. I don't have any categories in this course yet, but you can, so after you've made it, you can adjust most of the items here. The other nice tab when you're looking at an assignment is the completion summary. So you can look at an assignment and you can say who completed it, who didn't complete it, and is there anyone that I exempted from this assignment. So if we go back to activity details there, and we click on the date, you'll see there's exemptions. So if a student didn't have to do it for whatever reason, you could manage their exemption and say they don't need to do this. So that is it for the assignment. Remember, if you ever wanted to look at it, you can always view as a student. And then our student view, if we go ahead and click into it, week 1, assignment 1, I can say, oh, here's the instructions my instructor gave me. And then it says, you don't have any submissions yet. Drag and drop to upload your assignment below. So I can click upload. They could record. So if you want them to kind of record a narrative about their process or anything while they're doing it, you could ask them that as well. And then they get a note on when the activity will be marked complete and a reminder about the due date. So that is it for assignments. Next up, if we go back to week 1, I'm going to go ahead and, yes, week 1, like I said. So we'll go to week 1, and this time, actually, let me return to my editing view here. So now I'm in week 1, and this time I want to make a discussion. All right, so I go ahead, I clicked my blue upload create, and I clicked discussion. Now, before we go through this, discussions are going to be a tricky one for us because the terminology is used differently in Brightspace than it was in Moodle, and some of the words are the same, right? So in Moodle, we just had a discussion forum. Everything was a discussion forum, and you had a list of all of your discussions. When we are in Brightspace now, we have discussion forums and discussion topics. So when we're looking at the discussion page here, a discussion forum is this black text. It's basically a category or a grouping of discussions. The discussion topics are these blue texts down here. You can see it says topic. So these discussion topics are what we would think of as Moodle discussion forums. So Brightspace discussion topics are the same as Moodle discussion forums. And this is where the student will actually make posts and replies. If you only have a forum, this black text, the student won't be able to reply or make a post. So you have to have a topic. I'm going to go ahead and click this collapse all just so you can see. So I have a rendezvous point forum because I tried to use a fun name. And in this forum, right, if I go ahead and expand it, it's my general questions and introductions. That's the only thing in there. If I go to my weekly discussions, you can see that this is the discussions for each week. So you can use the discussion forums to group them however you would like. If you're going to do it by chapter and say you have 3 discussion questions for chapter 1, you might make a chapter 1 forum. So that way you could have chapter 1, number 1, chapter 1, number 2, and chapter 1, number 3. All right, so you have to think about how you want to organize your forum in advance. You do have to have at least 1 forum, so that'll be the black text. And then for the students to actually respond, you'll have to have at least one topic. That's the blue text below it. Now you'll also notice on all of these items here that there's different symbols on the forum and on the topics. So you can see here on the topic that this one is moderated and it has a little symbol. The students can see that as well, so it kind of gives them an overview of what they're looking at for that forum. So this one you can see includes assessment, it's graded, and this one has a locked date, so they can't post after that locked date. If I scroll down here, you can see that this one I did use groups and sections, so they are split up by group, and they also must post first. If we go down a little further, you can see this one I have all of the things. It's only unlocked for a certain time period. It has the group here. There's an assessment with it, so I can grade it. It's part of the gradebook, and they must post first before they can see anybody else's. So that's kind of an overview of how the discussions are structured. Now that we've had that, we can go back to our creator discussion and look at making one. So if you're making from content for the first time, this enter a title is a topic title. All right, so whatever the topic is, the forum or the discussion that you want students to respond to. Over to the right here, you'll see this is where it wants a forum, and it currently says no forums exist. So there is the option right here to add a new forum. And remember, this is like the category or grouping for discussions. So you may choose to group them by discussion type. Maybe you have a journal forum and they have to do journal discussions. You might have it by individual chapter forums and they have several questions per chapter. Whatever works for you. But so this is a forum. You can see it's on the list here. You can still hit new forum again if you're like, wait, that's not the name I wanted, or that's not the forum I meant to put it in. And you hit create, and now you can see you can choose which forum or category it should be in. Next up down here are the instructions. So this is where you would put the prompt for the student. So what 3 things do you like about this subject? Nonsense. And then we can go ahead. Now, one of the things you'll notice on this created discussion page, this is one of the streamlined areas. Once again, it defaults to being hidden because they assume you're going to want to show it whenever. So if you want it to be visible right away, make sure you uncheck that. But it's streamlined because we don't have any of the options that I showed you in my discussion list, like I have here. There's no options to set unlocking dates. There's no options to set groups. There's no options to set the assessment. And there's no options to make them post first. So if you're making it here, it's kind of bare bones. It throws it up there. And if you don't need a lot of those restrictions, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And it takes us right to the topic forum. So you can see here's the topic title. This is pretty much what the students see, minus this part at the bottom here. So there's the prompt, and you'll see this blue start a new thread button. That's the make a post button for students. There's also filter by, so there's unread and flagged. So you can check unread, and it'll just show you everything that's read. On a discussion, if I go to one here, oh, my view is here, so it'll be extra weird. But there is option to flag posts. So if you do flag a post and you're here, if it's something you want to come back to, you do have the option to filter by that flagged status. And then there's different ways to sort. So you can sort it whatever way works for you. Now, if you did want to add those extra features, you would have to scroll down here, and now you can see we have the dates and options. So if we click on add dates, we have start date, due date, end date. Now remember, before I said locked dates, it's unlocked, right? If I go back here to discussions, you can see that it says it is unlocked for this time period. So locking dates are special to discussions. They are not start dates. They are not end dates and they are not due dates. I do recommend adding a due date because that'll make sure that it shows up on the calendar. So there's that. Don't forget to click update. So now it has a due date there. And then you can see the options. So do you want users to post anonymously? Do you want to do that moderator approved? Do they have to post before they can see anyone else? And then another thing that you can adjust here is the ratings. So there's a 5-star rating scheme, an upvote, downvote. So 5-star, everybody's familiar with these days from movies and online reviews. The up downvote, if anybody's familiar with a Reddit list. So if it's upvoted, you know, it moves higher up the list. Usually downvote is lower on the list. Here they don't move up and down, but you could track it as like a like, dislike. Is this a pro, con? If you want people to put them into 2 categories of some kind, you could use the upvote, downvote rating. And then lastly is upvote only. So you can think of that as like Facebook likes or Instagram hearts. I like that one. I actually used that in my general questions forum. And I told students, if somebody posts a question and you go in and you're like, I have that same question, you can hit the plus button and kind of upvote or also identify that you're having that issue. So I know it's a wider spread issue, but so that is there. You don't have to have any, you could leave them all as nothing. But then don't forget to hit the blue update. The other thing that we can do here is add the grade item. So if I did want to assess that, we could go through that. Remember, grades are discussed more detail in week 4. But once again, you also have a completion summary here, so you can kind of see who has done what. All right. Now, the one thing that we were still missing from this page and everything was those lock, unlock dates. So if you wanted to add those lock, unlock dates, you would have to go to the discussion page directly. All right. You can see here's the forums that we made. But for this topic that we made, we would click our down arrow, our context menu, click edit topic. All right, and now you can see here's everything that we just had before. There is the option to change it to a group forum or a group discussion if you had groups. It'll give you a warning once you make it a group discussion, you cannot undo it, so be sure you want it to be groups. Here's all the options that we just did on that previous page. Now, if we move over across these tabs at the top, here's all of the restrictions. And if we scroll down, this is where the locking options are. So unlock means they can post in it at any time. Lock means that they can see it, but they cannot post in it. And then unlock for a set range means they can only post between these 2 dates. So, you know, depending on your content, or if you have lots of undergrads who are new to online, you might want to give them some hard deadlines to help them stay on task with their time management. You could just do one. You don't have to do both. Maybe you don't want them to work ahead, so you give a start date. But you'll have to come to this page to get to those lock, unlock options. If we continue across our tabs at the top, we have assessment. All right, and so if you wanted to add the grade item here, you could. Once again, assessment is going to be discussed in greater detail next week in week 4. And objectives, we're coming back to at a later point in time. But now you can see here's my topic. And I have these details about the forum or the discussion that I have made. All right. If you had wanted to come here, so either for assignments and discussions, either one, you also have the option to create directly from these pages. So you'll see on the discussions page, I have new. I can choose if I'm making a new forum, aka discussion category, or if I'm making a new topic. So if I click new topic, you'll see I'm going to put it in category 1. You can name it things I always check users must start their own post, but then I'm going to go ahead and hit save and close. You'll also might have noticed there was a save and new button there. So if you know, you're like, these are the 10 discussions I'm going to ask, and these are the questions I have, you can come to this page and just like hash them all out and say, all right, I made discussion 1, hit save and new, and make that next discussion. Now, if you are adding from the page directly, just like this, we added from the discussions page, and we go back to our content, you'll notice that that content, if we go to our table of contents so we can see everything all at once, this is fun, right, is not here anywhere in my course. So one button that we haven't really talked about yet is this existing activities button. And that says, hey, add stuff I already made. So I already made that discussion. So I can click on it and it'll show you all of your discussions or things that are already made. So here's category number 1. Here's that discussion, and it puts the link in. That's also nice if you have an ongoing project throughout the semester. So maybe assignment 1 is going to happen over week 1, and they need to look at it in week 2, right? Maybe they could do it anytime. So I can add that assignment also in week 2. So you can have something be across the whole semester, but show in every week. And that's one of the benefits of that existing activities button. All right. So that's it for assignments, discussions. And if you create on the assignments or discussions page, there is that existing activities button, so you can go and add them to where they need to be in your course. The one other item that we haven't talked about is the quizzes. All right. So if you go to upload create, you'll notice that we have new quiz. And we can use that button to go ahead and make a new quiz. First, it'll take you to create a quiz in Final. To name it Final Quiz. Here's the instructions. So on this main page, it's just the instructions here. It's not any of your questions or anything else. It's just saying, here is your quiz. You're going to take it by this date, or it's timed, or whichever. So after you hit save, it will then take you to just kind of this overview page. All right. So once again, down here, you'll see the activity details tab. You can update some options. So the attempts allowed, how you want their grade calculated. But up here, we have quiz setup. All right. So the quiz setup takes you to the more detailed overview page. It has restrictions. So once again, the restrictions tab is where that special access is. So if we scroll down here, the special access, that's how you give extended time for students with accommodations, or if you have a student that misses class and you wanted to give them a different window or whichever, you could. There's also a recommended time limit and an enforced time limit. So if it's a practice quiz, you might give them the recommended time limit so they can see where they would have been when the time was up. The enforced time limit gives you additional details about the grace period and options about what happens when that time limit's reached. You can password protect it. Eventually, we could talk about this IP range, but that's if you wanted to limit it to people like having to be on campus or different things like that. But there's a due date. Once again, you might want to do the availability for a quiz. You might just have it noted elsewhere that the quiz is coming up, but it might not be visible until a set window. We have the assessment feature. Sorry, I'm getting parched over here. So assessment, I always check allow attempt to be set to graded immediately upon completion. That means if you have anything that can be auto graded, like multiple choice or short answer, it will grade it for you. Once again, you have the option to add the grade item, or if you have grade items listed in your gradebook, you can associate it. Once again, discuss more in week 4. We can't check this off yet because there's no grade item. So if we did add a grade item, you can say yes, put it in the grade book right away. And then down here we have how many attempts that they're allowed. If you hit apply, it'll give you additional options down below here. This one I really like. It's retake incorrect questions only. So if you just want them to verify that they're learning it, or if they're doing the research to check on the questions they got wrong, you can check that. And then you can also set minimum maximums for them to advance to different attempts. So hold on one second. All right, so there's lots of different items in this assessments tab. If we jump over to submission views, we can talk about this more in detail when you're ready, because I don't think it will be super helpful in this setup. But the submission views allows you to set up what information the student sees after the course or after the quiz. And you can set up different views, so you can set it up so they can only see their score right afterwards, which is what it's happening here. But then you could add an additional view that says, hey, you can only, or you can see everything, the questions you answered, what the right answer is, all of the things, but only during this time period by using the views. So when you're ready for that, you can submit a ticket, or hopefully we'll have documentation by the time you're ready for that. But those are there. And then we hit save and close. So once again, those are just all of the quiz settings. All right. If we go back to quiz setup here, you'll see that there is, on this very first properties page, add edit questions. So if we click that, that's what really takes us to the quiz building area. And there's a couple different ways. One is an import. So you can upload a file if you have one elsewhere. Eventually, when we get our learning object repository set up a little better, departments could share multiple choice questions or things that they have. But you could upload a file from a publisher, etc. So right now, if you click add, you can add a new question, a section, or a question pool. So a question pool, right, you could say, maybe we're going to do week 1, and they have to choose 5 questions out of however many questions I have in the week 1 pool. You could browse the question library. So if you have questions already made, only we pick 5 because they don't have any questions yet. But so you can add questions pools, so it can pick like 1 or 5 out of 10 questions. So everybody's is a little bit different. If you did the Brightspace Basics for Instructors course and you were talking to your peers and you're like, I didn't get that question, that's because I did use question pools there. There is also a way to create sections. So if you wanted to shuffle the questions within a specific section, you could do that. That, helps promote academic integrity while they're online, whichever you need. Notice when you do click in a text area, it'll give you the option with all our fancy buttons, so you can add images. I do recommend not like copying and pasting an image. You can click and drag an image, like if it's on your desktop, like something that you already have on your computer. It'll add an image for you and it works fine, but don't copy and paste an image into your question files because they most likely will not stay nicely. All right, once again, you have the full screen if you wanted to write your question full screen. Somewhere for my math friends here, you can enter all different types of equations. So those are there. And then we just go to actually add a question. There's all different types of questions that you can add. These are discussed in intense detail in the Brightspace Basics for Instructors course. But I'll go ahead and show the multi-short answer. Right? So the question text, we could say, complete the problem. You can insert images if you like to go with the question. But then you'll see here, it says input 3 boxes rows 1. So row 1, they're all together and different items, but we could say this is cool. And then you'll notice that there is a preview button down here. So if we hit preview, it says complete the problem. And you would have to type in this is cool. All right, so if you click down, the preview closes. All right, you can choose case sensitive, case insensitive, depending on what your needs are. So the multi-short answer one is great for lists. List all the things. All right, so that's what this one is for, but you can hit save, and now you'll see it's added to the list. You can see the point here. If you wanted to edit it, you can click on it and you can change the point values. Another question type, depending on which type of question it is, it won't have the preview button because it has a live preview over here. So you can say, what is your favorite color? Pink, red, blue. Maybe I don't want a fourth answer, so I can get rid of that. Also note that you can do quick links, you can put pictures, you can put equations in here. So lots of options. You'll check off whichever one is right. You can randomize the answers if you like. If you don't have them randomized, you can click and drag them around. Randomize takes that option away from you. There's other options up here. If you wanted to add feedback, add a hint, add custom weights, right? So you could say, you know, this one's worth 100%. This is a close answer, so I'm still going to give you 70% on this one. And this one's totally wrong, so I'm going to give you a 0. There's also, if you wanted it to have numbering of some kind, and you can choose which kind. So depending on your preferences. But then there's the option to save, and you'll see them in line here. So what's your favorite color? You can click and drag, move them around. There's also a preview button, so if you wanted to preview the whole quiz, so it lets you through. You can see how much time you have, all the items that were set up. It'll tell you any notes, so this is just because I'm previewing it. You start quiz, and then you can actually see what your quiz looks like for the student. So this one, it has the time limit. I checked the timer to run. It tells me what attempt I'm on. You can see the 2 questions here. So I could say, cool, this is, and I'm going to go ahead and check red. You'll see it comes up that it's saved. Over here, if we look, we have these check marks. So we know they're done. We hit submit. It'll give you an option, submit your quiz. And then when it first comes up here, it says your quiz has been submitted successfully. And you'll see, since it was an auto score item, the students can see their score right away. Anyways, all right. I think that is the quiz item. Now, you'll notice we have assignments and discussions, but we don't have the quiz tool directly on this bar. So to get to the quiz tool, you can do tools and quizzes. All right. Now, if you are going to be making lots of quizzes, I recommend that you use this way. So going to tools, quizzes, and then when you're here, add all of your quizzes through the question library. All right. So the question library, you can upload a file, but it does let you create sections or basically folders. So I'm going to say these are my chapter 1 questions. You can hide the section information from the students so they don't have to know if it's like a final and you don't want them to know it's from chapter 1. And then you can choose shuffle questions in this section. But I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And then it kind of sees that overview here. When I click into chapter 1, You'll see I now have the option. I can create a subfolder in there if I wanted to do it by section, or here is where I can start adding my questions. So let's go ahead real quick and we add a true false things. You'll see this one has the live preview. And you can see it kind of gives you a picture image of what type of question it is. Let's add a multiple choice things. And if there's something, so like this enumeration's turned on because that's what I had wanted last time, I can just uncheck those and get rid of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 2, randomize them. Hit save. All right. And let's just throw a multi-select in there for fun. Choose stuff. Once again, you'll see our live preview over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 45. Those are the ones that are right. Once again, there's add answer here. So if you need more, you can get more. One of the cool things for multi-select is you can choose how the points work. Is it all or nothing? Do they only get a point per answer? So 0.5 points per correct answer. Right minus wrong. So if they choose some of the wrong ones, it'll subtract points away from their total, whichever one you want. So those are cool there. But if we hit save, you can now see that I have these questions in my question library. And the question library, the reason that we recommend using that is because it really just makes it easier to move from course to course and in terms of tracking when you want to set up quizzes again in the future. So after I've added all my questions, I'm going to click Done Editing here, and it'll take me back to this main page. So now if I were to go to my quiz again, right, and add or edit my questions, now you'll see that I have the option to add, and I can add a question pool. I'm going to browse my question library and say, all right, give me all my chapter 1 questions. Here's the 3 questions. If there was one that you really didn't want, you could say, oh, this is an old one. I don't want that one in there anymore. And then for the question pool, I could say pick one of these 2 questions to give my students. So chapter 1, random. And you hit save. And now it has, it's a chapter 1 random question pool, and it will give them however many. They're the 1 question, of course, 1 point. So that's a cool idea. If you didn't even want a question pool, there's the option to import. So you can import directly from the question library and say, hey, I want all of these chapter 1 questions, and it will bring them all in. So the question library really makes organizing your quizzes nicer. It helps with those question pools for academic integrity. And if you're moving from course to course, that question library is easier to use in terms of copying quizzes or setting up new quizzes, I should say. You will also see that you have a sample of what the questions look like. So this looks kind of more familiar to what we had in Moodle for the question list, but it's there. And you hit save and close. And then just like the other things that we had for assignments and discussions would be that if you make it on one of those pages, so if you make it on assignments, if you make it on discussions, and if you make it on quizzes, is that afterwards you'll go back to your content and you'll do that existing activities button and you can pick it and add it however you need. Alrighty, so that's it for the interactive things. If you have any questions, as always, let me know.